Hello and welcome to our Qube 680 online demo. I'm going to go ahead and go through a couple of the new features that you're going to see in the release of Qube 680. We're also going to go over a few general announcements, and for those folks who are watching us on YouTube or via Google Hangouts or from our QubeTube page on our website, just to let you know how things work, if this is your first Google Hangout that's on air, first time you're seeing one of our demos, or as a reminder for those who have seen it before, there's about a 10 to 15 second delay in when we broadcast and when you see or hear the content. So as you submit questions, which you should be able to do with the box, I believe it's on the lower left-hand side of the video screen, it'll take about, like I said, 10 to 15 seconds for us to see it, and then we'll go ahead and see the question, let you know that we're answering it at that time, and then address whatever the concerned issue may be. Please do feel free to submit questions at any point during the demo, and we'll go ahead and let you know again that we're answering the question. And if you have any follow-up, always, anytime during the presentation, feel free to ask questions. So going to start with some general announcements. The first is we have a change to the release date for Qube 680. Originally, we had planned to release it on July 27th. Now we are going to release on August 11th. This will be right around the time that SIGGRAPH is happening in LA. So we'll have folks there, with demos and information about the new features that are coming out. So hopefully we get a chance to talk to you there. And if you have any questions about the release date, feel free to let us know. So it's about roughly 2 weeks after the original release date on July 27th. We'd also like to announce 2 small releases that are happening this week. These aren't live as of yet, but they should be live in the next 24 to 48 hours. The first is Qube 664. So we have a maintenance release for a small fix to the supervisor. You can see the more specific details in the release notes. We're going to go ahead and post the updated 664 to the same location as the previous release 664. So if you're interested in grabbing the update, you can go find it at the same spot you got the original download. We're also releasing a 671, which is a maintenance release for bug fixes for issues found in 670. So 671 will have its own download location. It'll be new, so it's not like we're replacing 670 directly like we did with 664. If you have any questions about what's in the release and the things that we fixed, please go ahead and let us know, shoot us an email, or you can read the release notes. But both of those, like I said, should be available in the next 24 to 48 hours. So we also wanted to announce some recent changes to our website, pipelineeffects.com. We went through and did a complete redesign of the site, not only to make it more visually pleasing, but to make it easier to find information, to get a hold of us, to do license rentals, things like that. So here's a preview of our homepage. We just wanted to let you know, just in case you haven't seen the new site, you can go check it out. And of course, if you have any feedback, things that you like or don't like, you can always let us know. So just a couple of the features that we added in the new site is a blog. First of all, this is something we weren't doing in the previous site, but just to give you updates on the latest and greatest with Qube, like if we're going to be at events, for instance, like at the Montreal conference, or if there's press about Qube being used with a recent movie, production, or game, you can go ahead and find that information there. And then we also went ahead and updated the page where you can locate resellers. So it's easier to go ahead and find a reseller within your area. You can go, within North America, the United States, Canada, Asia, Europe, and pretty quickly find a reseller located within your region. We also did a documentation revamp at docs.pipelinefx.com, where we house the technical documentation about Qube. And we worked with an independent consultant to go through and, sort of rearrange a lot of documentation, rewrite it where it needed to be rewritten, clean things up, and make it easier to find the information that you're trying to find. So if you get a chance, go ahead and check out docs.pipelinefx.com. And again, if you have any feedback about finding information there, let us know. We also added a page to house all of our video content, or at least for you to be able to find all of our video content. It's called QubeTube. And for instance, you can go to QubeTube and stream this demo or any future demos right off that page. It basically plays the demo through YouTube, and you watch it live, just like you can also watch it live on YouTube, or you can watch it live on Google Hangouts. So you can always see the dates for our next demo, see when the next one's coming up, and then, like I said, just go there and watch it live. On the same page, on the QubeTube page, we're also adding a series of educational videos that we're calling Pipeline FX University. Pipeline FX University will be instructional tutorial videos, things that go ahead and explain to you how features work, how you submit jobs, things like that, so that you have a way to learn a little bit more how to use Qube more effectively. If you're a new user, it should be easier for you to get up to speed. But basically, it'll be housing all of our video content in terms of educational and instructional videos. You can also go ahead and, on the same page, QubeTube, browse our YouTube channel and see all the videos that we posted, which may include event videos. So now more on the roadmap side, and one of the things that we're going to demo a little bit later here in a couple minutes is the work that we're doing with the Qube UI. And you may have seen some of the demos we did previously in our 670 online demos. And if you did, you would see that we've been putting a lot of development effort into releasing a singular Qube UI, basically taking the good parts of Wrangler View and Artist View, putting them together, and creating one UI that any role within your studio, your organization, would be able to use to interact and interact with Qube and control your farm. So what is the new Qube UI? Like I said, it's essentially the horsepower functionality that you have in Wrangler View, the control that allows you to go ahead and control the jobs on your farm and manipulate large numbers of jobs, behind the more, let's say, advanced, flexible, faster UI of Artist View. So that basically you're getting something that'll run more quickly on your machine and still do all the things that Wrangler View did. Plus, of course, we're going to maintain the existing Artist View functionality. So if you're using things in Artist View that you like, that'll still be there. Anything in Wrangler View that you like will be ported over, and you'll be able to use one UI, which should be faster, more flexible, more lightweight. That'll be the Qube UI, period. So our plan with the current Wrangler View then, as we go ahead and merge the two together, would be to stop the release and support of Wrangler View by the end of 2015. So as you know Wrangler View now and as you use it now, at the end of the year, you should be onto this new Qube UI, which again will be faster, more flexible, ideally more dependable. And by then, you shouldn't miss the Wrangler View UI, as bad as that could sound, because you'll have a new submission interface. That new submission UI will be fully configurable and it'll be tabbed. We'll be introducing centralized preferences, where you can set preferences on the user, studio, and show levels. You'll have quick access to views that are targeted towards specific roles, like producers, artists, even wranglers or TAs, TDs. You'll be able to see streaming log data. We'll have updated charts and metrics for reporting. And all of our in-app submission for all of the packages supporting Qube will also have been updated by the time we go ahead and retire Wrangler View at the end of 2015. So what can you expect in our first release? Since 6.8.0, that's coming out on August 11th, is our first release of the Qube UI. It won't be in the first release the flat-out replacement of Wrangler View. So there'll be some things that you see get added on in subsequent releases as we work to retire Wrangler View by the end of the year. So in the very first release of the Qube UI, you'll see the new submission UI, centralized preferences, the new in-app submission for major packages. We're going to cover the 80 and 90% of the use cases first, and then go ahead and add the packages less used in subsequent releases. You'll see our first updates to charts and reporting, and we'll try to have that well integrated into the UI, so it's your charts are easier to find, easier to use. And then, of course, we'll have the configurable views by role, where you can see for a producer and artist information that's relevant to you. So these are the things that you're going to see right out the gate in our first release in 6.8. And then as we go, you're going to see, the streaming log data. You're going to see the reports, become more advanced, access more data. They're probably going to be refined in their look and feel. So, we're hoping that the feedback is good for the initial release, and then of course getting as much information and feedback as we can from you, our clients, as the other releases come out, like a 6.9 or maybe it's a 6.8.2 or 6.8.3, we're hoping to improve the things we've already released. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to one of our developers. Who's going to show you, first of all, he's going to show you our compatibility, some recent compatibility we added for Houdini 14. And then he's going to give you sort of like a review of the work that was done, in the Qube UI through 6.7, and then some stuff that's happened since 6.7. So you can see what we had done during the previous cycle and then what we've done now. So let me go ahead and turn that over.
All right, hello all. This is Brian Knutson. I'm a developer here at Pipeline Effects. I just want to show you a quick overview of what we're doing, as Scott mentioned, with our Houdini integration, and then we'll go into some of the latest developments with our new UI. So the Houdini stuff has been pre-recorded. Let me just go ahead and get that started, and then we'll move into the Qube UI after that.
Hi, I'm going to demo the work in progress for Houdini 14 support. We have a ROP that you can hook up to other ROPs. And so here we go. It's hooked up to something that's going to generate IFDs at the moment. I can't. Mantra keeps crashing on my Windows VM, so I'm just doing proof of concept with IFD export. So I can just sit here and this ROP has a render in Qube, which submits a job. And if I then go and look in my Wrangler View interface, I'll find it here, and it's running on my Windows machine. I'm running 8 instances, and I'm going to export 30 IFDs. If I look at the way the job runs, it basically opens up a Python interpreter in Houdini and fires commands down at it, and iterates over all the ROPs and renders frames, or does whatever the ROP is actually set to, and detects if these ROPs are set to export or render. And if I look in my Finder, here I've got the IFDs I just exported at 1014, and that's it.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and jump over into some of our new UI developments. Now, what we spoke about before was kind of the ability to set preferences, set centralized preferences, so that if you wanted to configure your studio, you configure in one location. You don't have to save files in one place and then point other UIs to that. Instead, everything's saved centrally in the database. In fact, it's the same database that controls everything else. So there's no configuration at all. If I were to set a preference on one machine, I'll go to another machine, and that preference will be there automatically for me. Preferences, as before, allow you to do mandates. So I can set a preference, a studio-wide preference for, let's say, priority. In fact, let's just take a look at it. We'll talk through it as we go. So if I'm an admin, this is a generic submission UI. It happens to be for Nuke. If I'm an admin, I have this file and edit preferences option, or enable editing option. When I do that, you'll see I get an edit button next to every one of the parameters in my submission dialog. So if I want to say, let's edit priority, I can edit this. I could change the label if I wanted to, or I can change the value of it. I'll go ahead and just change this to, I don't know, something else. And then we'll submit that. And now I'll go ahead and change the priority here for this submission UI everywhere in the facility. Now I can set it for everyone, or I can set it for just myself. For now, because I'm an admin, I'm setting it for the whole facility. If I weren't an admin, I'd have a very similar interface, and setting that parameter would set it just for myself. The way that the preferences are loaded is that we'll load all the central preferences first, and then we'll load all the user preferences on top of that. If a user preference redefines a central preference, it will take precedence unless the central preference, if we look at this priority again, is mandated. So if I were to mandate this preference as a central preference, then it doesn't matter if a user sets their preference on top of it, their preference wouldn't be taken because we've mandated it at the studio level. I can also, due to a lot of customer requests, I can hide certain preferences. So if I didn't want any of my users to see priority, I can set its value to whatever, and then go ahead and set it to be hidden. And when I hide that, now that priority or that priority parameter is completely disappeared. Now it will still be submitted with all of my jobs, and it'll still be submitted at with the value that was set in my central preferences. But my users don't have the ability to change it, nor do they even know that that parameter exists. Now you can change a lot of different things in here. So we can change, again, we can change the label of any one of these parameters. We can change the default, which is just what's displayed in the UI before anyone types. For example, this grayed out text. I can change the value, which would be the value that's submitted, the actual value that's submitted, and then we can again make mandates. This is the big change here. We went over this before, but we're kind of showing it in action. Now, if I were to open the interface on a different computer, you'd see that the same values were there. And again, there's no setup that's involved here anymore. It's all just automatically done. So that's kind of the big change with our latest development with the new submission UI. This will be again the submission UI that goes with the new Qube UI that'll be ubiquitous for Qube moving forward. I think that's about all I have for new developments since our last meeting. So maybe I'll just go ahead and leave it with this, unless Scott, do you think that we should go over anything else, or is there anything that we should cover beyond the submission UI parameters that we've just gone over?
I mean, unless you're showing the tabbed UI, of course, and the preferences, just as long as everybody can see sort of the first set of work that we did with the submission UI during the 6.7 release timeframe. So did you think you covered that for the most part?
Submission UI work for the 6.7 timeframe has all been in Wrangler view. So that would be kind of the older submission UI. So anything that's gone in 6.8 and forward would be this. And again, this kind of, if we look at just the submission UI here as a general sort of dialogue, I suppose we could say that we do have the tabbed interface, as you mentioned. These tabs are all configurable through the new simple command. If we do a little bit of review of the simple command or the Python scripts that drive our current interfaces in Wrangler View, we're rewriting those along with the submission UIs, and those simple commands will allow you to define what these tabs are, what exists in each one of these tabs, and it's all completely customizable. So for example, if I don't want any of my users to see any of this worker selection here, I can get rid of all of this. Or if I don't want to have this tab, if it's too complicated, maybe I only want to see hosts, I can move the hosts parameter out of the Qube worker selection into either a different tab or into the top level, and then do away with the worker selection tab altogether. So the submission interface is designed to be very customizable. Of course, it will come out of the box working just the way that the current submission UI works, which has every parameter that you could ever need. And then, in fact, if you'd like to invent your own parameters, that can go in there as well. But then if you're in a school or if you're in a place with a very customized or very rigid workflow, then a lot of these submission parameters aren't necessary. So you can go ahead and just remove them or move them around. Or again, as we've demonstrated today, you can set their values, mandate the values so that the users can see them but then not change them, or in fact set the value and then hide that parameter completely so the user doesn't see it at all, nor do they know that it exists. And once again, just to reiterate, all of this happens with no configuration. It's all going to go into the same database that Qube uses for its jobs. By the way, this is all very low overhead. There's very few calls that are made to the database, so even with a very busy farm, you'll see no lag in fetching those parameters. And in fact, once we fetch the parameters, we're going to save them to the local disk so that in the future, if there were any connection problems to the database or if there was any slowness, we can get all those parameters locally. And start using them, and then resave them back to the database if we choose to do so. So that I think that about covers it.
Okay. We got a question about the UI from Christian. We'll go ahead and I'll read it now, address it now. Maybe you can answer it for him.
Sure.
When I'm an admin, can I change the submission UI settings for just myself, or would I always modify the global settings?
That's a good question, and as of now, you would modify the global settings. But now that the question is brought up, yeah, there needs to be a way for you as an admin to be able to modify only your own settings as well. So there will probably be under the file and enable editing or disable editing. There'll either be maybe enable editing for all users or enable editing for myself, or in fact, what we've spoken about before. This is kind of alluding a little bit into the future, or kind of a sneak peek into the future. There is the idea of having different tiers of preferences. So one preference might be, for example, I have the priority, which I've just hidden, by the way. But while I'm editing, I can see it. So priority, however, is a ubiquitous parameter. So every single job will have priority. Not necessarily every single job will have the nuke version, but every single job will have, for example, hosts. So for everything that is ubiquitous, we'll have a tier called common, which means that this is a parameter that exists in every single submission UI. So maybe I want to edit at the common tier so that I can just say for every single job, let's have a priority of 5. Then there's a tier above that, which would be specific stuff, things like the nuke version, but I want it set studio-wide. So for everyone in the studio, I want to be using nuke 9.1. Then there's a tier above that, which would be a show-specific, or what we call a preset-specific, where I would define, for example, I'm working on the latest Marvel movie, whatever it happens to be. I would say for that particular feature, I want to be using nuke 9.1, but for a feature that I started last year, I still want to be using nuke 8.7 or whatever it happens to be. So in that case, I would set for one tier, at the preset tier, I would set one preset called Marvel, and we'll set the value there to be nuke 9.1, and another tier to be the old movie, whatever it is, and set it to be 8.7 or whatever that is. The point being that there is this idea of the tier, and in the tier we'll say what it is that we're editing. So you as an admin, or let's just say for the common user, I might only have the user-specific tier to look at. And so when I enable my editing, that's the only option I have. But as an admin, when I go to edit, I'll go ahead and choose which tier I'm editing, and I might be editing my own, or I might be editing one of one of the studio-wide ones. This is still kind of a work in progress, but this is the way we have it laid out currently anyway.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. And Phil, we did see your questions about the or your comment about what was on the screen during the presentation, and I did hear from the guys as I was doing the presentation about that also, but I couldn't see it because I had the PowerPoint on full screen to try and make it a little bit better viewing experience without the controls and everything in PowerPoint. So we'll go ahead. I'm not necessarily going to run through the presentation again, but maybe potentially this is easier to see if it's in just looking, at Adobe Acrobat. So I probably just run through the pages very quickly so you can see the stuff I was talking about. And then what I'll do is when we go ahead and send out the request for feedback in the survey, and then of course I'll post it to the Hangout page, the event page, a link to this PDF so that people can see it. So I'll just run through the pages very quickly. This was the announcement. We had the Qube 664, 671. A little preview of the Pipeline FX website, which includes the blog, finding a reseller, documentation, QubeTube, then our Pipeline FX University content, which is also on the QubeTube page, and then the start of the information for the Qube UI update, explaining what it is, what we plan to do by the end of the year, the features you'll see, and then of course what you'll see in the first release. So like I said, I'll go ahead and upload that and then share the link, in the feedback survey, the email, and of course on the event page, because I hate to go through all that and have folks not see any of what I was talking about. So. So we'll give it a second, see if anybody else has any other questions. Maybe about 15 seconds to go with the delay. Okay, so I guess we have a question about Ldap import. So Ldap import in what context? User import from other directories, other user directories. Do we have any plans with that? Currently, I don't think so.
I can speak to that a bit, Scott.
Okay, that would be great.
So the current Qube system, as far as users are concerned, at least through version 6, we don't have huge plans or huge changes planned. So in the current iteration of Qube, user authentication happens before Qube is invoked. So there is no necessary reason for you to import users as the user list already exists. Now, if you wanted to change permissions based on the users, I suppose you could import something from Ldap through some sort of a scripting mechanism. You wouldn't get full Ldap permissions or group levels or anything of that nature. So there has been talk of implementing some sort of user authentication system in the future, but that's very far out and something we'd like to get some validation or some feedback from our current customers before we make any definite plans on exactly which way we're going with that. As it sits now, however, the user system or user authentication is handled before Qube starts, and therefore we don't really have any sort of automated import of Ldap users into the system.
Cool, thank you. And again, maybe just couple more seconds here, minutes, well, seconds, to see if there are any other questions. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask during the demo, feel free to send an email to support at Pipeline Effects, or you can email me directly if you'd like, it's Scott at Pipeline Effects, and we'll make sure if there was any information that was missing, or again, questions that you had about the functionality that's coming up, that we get an answer back to you. So thank you for watching our presentation, and we'll hope to see you at SIGGRAPH, and of course downloading the next release of Qube 6.8.0 in August. Thank you.